Hello, I am Brother Justice, Modern Working Tools here at Barrington 522 in Barrington, Illinois. And I have a very special guest with us, Brother Dr. David Harrison. He is a UK-based Masonic historian, and he has so far written 10 books about the craft and English Freemasonry, the history. He's contributed many papers and articles on various magazines, journals, Masonic publications. He's one of my favorite Masonic authors. He's been featured on numerous television programs and radio programs internationally. He's one of my favorite. He graduated from the University of Liverpool in 2008 and earned his PhD. And his dissertation was focused on the development of English Freemasonry, which was subsequently published by Lewis Masonic as the genesis of Freemasonry, which became a bestseller. And I think right now it's in its third printing, if I'm not mistaken. But if we could talk a little bit about your Masonic record, your lodges, how you came to be involved with the fraternity, just your Masonic background, that would be really awesome to hear, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for the invite first. Yeah, really pleasure. Masonic background. Well, I joined in 1998, and the reason why I joined was because at the time I was seeing a girl whose father was a Freemason, and you know, I think I was sitting there for a good few years, you know, and so I got to know her dad and the family and, you know, that kind of thing, and was going around, and obviously I'd just finished university doing my first degree then, which was in Welsh history and archaeology at Bangor University. And I was mainly training to be an archaeologist at the time. I was digging holes in the ground and things, but the pay wasn't great, and it was always raining. It's always raining over here, and so, you know, you're kind of muddy and you're digging a hole, and then someone comes along and says, "Oh yeah, we're not paying you this week, maybe next week," you know. So I was looking for something else at the time, you know. I'd just finished being with the band as well, because I was in a band for a few years in the 90s. So you could say I was at a bit of a crossroads, and I got speaking to a dad one time, and I'd been offered to do an MA, a master's, and with the hint that would lead to a PhD. So I thought, oh, I'll just take it as it goes. And I was looking to do a thesis for the MA, and obviously progress with that to do a PhD. And so the girl's father said, "Oh, you know, I'm in a lodge, you know, you want to come along?" So we ended up going to a few socials, and because over here we have, like, well, you have them over there as well, suppose, socials and things, and charity fundraisers and things like that. I got to know a few of the guys in the lodge, and ended up going in April 1998. So I think I was 28 when I went in, and so yeah, I've been in ever since. The lodge that I joined was called Donville Lodge, and that met above a pub in a little village called Lynn in Cheshire. And so really nice, quaint setting, this old pub, oldie worldy pub, still meets there. It's called the Spread Eagle, I think. And so that was really nice. Well, then I left that lodge a few years later, because I ended up doing the PhD in Liverpool and moved to Liverpool while I was doing that. So I ended up in another lodge in Liverpool for a while, and that met in on the edge of Liverpool in a village called Woolton Village, where John Lennon met Paul McCartney in Woolton Village. So again, it was a nice setting, really nice, beautiful place, and we met in a hall called Woolton Hall, which was very nice. And so I was there, I think, for about 10 years maybe, and then I moved to the lodge that I'm in now. So I moved back to Warrington, where I was originally from, and I'm in a lodge called the Lodge of Lights now. So I've been there, I think, for don't know, 9 years, 8-9 years. So yeah, you know, it's I've been in three lodges, you know, which is good really, because you can move around, you know, and you can go to different lodges and visit, join, whatever, So it's been good, really, to see the different lodges. Each lodge has been totally different. It's worked a different ritual. Has its own style. So yeah, it's been a good experience, really.
What's cool is too, the Affinity Lodge is pretty popular over there. If you're a soccer player, or if you're a police officer, or if you're whatever you're into, if you're a musician or an artist, there's lodges for you. I think that's something that we could definitely benefit from. I was thinking about that today on the drive here. Like, that would be cool to have a lodge comprised of like artists, like painters, sculptors,
Oh yeah,
poets, musicians. I think that would be cool. So
yeah.
there's definitely a lot of that over there. That's very interesting. And so you do work different ritual there, huh? So it's
it's depends which lodge you go to. I mean, it's all the emulation ritual, which is the main ritual. It doesn't differ too much from that, but it might be slightly different wording, different perambulations, different bits added in, different bits taken away. Like the Liverpool lodge I was a member of worked a ritual called Bottomley ritual, which is like a Victorian, I think it dates from the late Victorian era. And there's a few words in there that are very Victorian, very kind of that aren't in other rituals. It's good, when you get these little different things. So the ritual that the lodge works now that I'm in, the Lodge of Lights, they have their own ritual. It's just called a Lodge of Lights ritual, which again is a bit different. So it's good.
Now here we have lodges of research, which is our primarily research focused lodges. They don't work degrees or anything like that. They write papers every year and annual transactions, things like that. And then we have like in the UK, we have academic lodges. We don't call it a university scheme, but we call it academic lodge, which is tied to a collegiate or university institution, where they give discounts to recruiting members that are part of the school and whatnot. And in New York, I was told that there's some lodges that are more esoteric inclined, a lot of esoteric Masons. Do they have that in the UK? Some, philosophical and esoteric lodges?
You do? Yeah. There's a lodge called Living Stones, which meets in Leeds in Yorkshire, which is an esoteric inclined lodge. And there's a good friend of mine, another Masonic author called Robert Lomas. He's a member of that one. There's a lodge called, I'm sure it's, I'm going to get this name wrong now. It's either Blue Horizon or something like that meets in London. I probably got that completely wrong. The Horizon bit is right, but I'm not sure about the. But that's an esoteric lodge. You find that these esoteric lodges, they like invite only, so no one can just go along and turn up, and they are very secretive. And I know Living Stones, you've got to be invited there.
Is that in conjunction with a group like maybe like SRIA or something like that? Is it similar to that?
No, it's a craft lodge.
Craft lodge. Okay.
Yeah. So, excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. It's getting late here, so my voice is going. But yeah, it's invite only. Craft lodge. Very, very kind of close knit. There's another lodge called Canterbury Lodge, which meets in London, in Canterbury, in London. Canterbury Tower.
I'm named after the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Not Canterbury, but Canonbury.
Oh, Canterbury. Okay.
Canonbury. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's quite an esoteric lodge. and I know a few members of that, and one of them once told me that they meditate before they actually go into the lodge.
That's not uncommon for esoteric lodges or SRIA or whatever. From people I've spoke with who are a member of these invite orders, that's not uncommon.
Yeah, that's right.
Even in Egypt, there's a lodge, I believe it's in Cairo, where they practice, they have permission, dispensation from UGLE to have their own Egyptian themed working of the ritual.
Right.
And they told me, the worshipful master over there told me that they have a ritual for their opening. He even sent me a PDF of the opening of the ritual, where they like magnetize water and things like that. They're doing rituals like chants and things like that. I think that's really cool, incense and things. Here in Illinois, we do have a couple peculiar lodges. I don't know if they're still around today, but I'm an assistant librarian at the Scottish Rite, Valley of Chicago. And I'm pretty much the slave for the real librarian, Brother Carl. Sorry, Brother Carl. He pretty much gives me stacks and stacks of old research transactions and things like MSA and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
And there's a brother Mason from Illinois who I highly regard. He's our dearly departed brother, Alphonse Serza. He is he was like, pre Arturo de Hoyos type guy. A lot of zeal for our institution. He was a lawyer. He was from here in Chicago. He wrote tons and tons of articles on Freemasonry, and I'm catching them, and I keep catching them. And so one I read in particular was that we had a few interesting lodges. I think to this day we still have a daylight lodge, which is comprised of older members who can't drive at night. So they meet in the daytime.
We have those over here as well.
And then we have moonlight lodges, or we had moonlight lodges, which only meet during the full moon.
That's the lodge that I'm in at the moment now.
That's cool. I like that
concept. On a Monday, last Monday of the month, I think it is, and it's an old moonlight lodge. Always used to meet the Monday nearest to the full moon.
And then there's also lodges, I wouldn't say affinity, but like traditional observance, they kind of price themselves out for the regular member. Maybe the price to join is just exuberant. And no one else could join, sort of deal. Some could say it's elitist or what have you, but I think it's cool that we have a different variety. But there was two lodges in Illinois. There was two lodges in Illinois where it was kind of like one of those elitist lodge where it was really expensive to join. I think one of them was a German speaking lodge only, and you had to be sort of affluent, but also German speaking. So I don't think that they're around today, but when I was reading these old books, I was like, wow, we had that, and that's cool. But there's all types of lodges.
That's right. There is, which is interesting. Keeps it all interesting, really. I mean, the lodge that I was in Liverpool was actually it wasn't classed as a police lodge, but it was filled with police, people that were police or ex-police or were working to do with something with the police,
Yeah, in New York, they have firefighter lodges where a lot of them are firefighters or police. Yeah.
I'm nothing to do with the police. I don't know how I ended up in that lodge, but it was, it was full of police, and some stories there.
How does that work out? Because I know in the UK, England specifically, there was sort of a problem where what Parliament wanted members to disclose their membership.
That's right.
Is that still going on today? How do members sort of get around that?
I think it's still in place, but no one really bothers anymore. I think it's I mean, obviously the list of names, is there for anybody that wants to see it in that regard. I mean, I've worked as a university lecturer, and I've worked in colleges, and all manner of things like that. And I've never been asked, although people end up knowing that I am a Freemason because obviously I write about it. I've been writing about it for 13 years, and my PhD was about it. So it's never really caused any real conflict at all. I can remember once there was another tutor who was this is in Liverpool. So you get like an Irish community in Liverpool, Irish Catholic community, and this guy was I think a member of that community in some way. He was something to do with the Catholic Church, and he was a bit kind of funny about it, a bit strange about it, you know. And he was always asking questions like, "Oh, you know, what do you do? You know, are you still anti-Catholic? You know?" And I had to explain to him that we're not anti-Catholic at all, and you know, and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's the only time, really. You know,
I think the Vatican even invited De Hoyos over, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. It was just that one incident, really. But he
Yeah.
was okay, really. But he was always asking questions about it, and it was obvious a bit, you know, strange about it. You know, he had a bit of a strange feeling about it, and he kept on bringing it up sometimes.
Brother, we have a similar thing here in our country, but more particular in my jurisdiction. We have a highly controversial figure. I plan on maybe talking about it someday in good taste, with respect. I'm not going to slander people or belittle people or what I'm going to do it like a historian would. I'm going to be unbiased. I'm not going to be partial. I'm going to be impartial. So what I'm going to do is I plan on telling the story of how Joseph Smith came to Illinois and he started the lodge, and how they took that down and they sort of kicked him out, and how he died. And I plan on, telling, the story because it's very interesting. We have a religious group in our country and all over the world. The Mormon Latter-day Saints group is world renowned. But the core founder, Joseph Smith, was an Illinois Freemason, and he was made a Mason. They say on site, but it was technically over a weekend. The Grand Master came to Nauvoo, and there was a ceremony, and so we have a religious group that's intimately intertwined with our fraternity, and it's inseparable. A lot of the early founders of the church were Master Masons. Even before they founded the church, Joseph's family were Masons. His brother, I believe his dad was. And it all happened here, and it wasn't without controversy even back then. Brethren, constituent lodges in Illinois were not happy that the Grand Lodge was going to grant dispensation to start these Mormon lodges. They were really angry about it when it first happened. Apparently, our Grand Master did some things behind the scenes to sort of give them the green light. And that really didn't sit well. And after that happened, ever since there was conflict. And in Joseph Smith's religion, there are certain rites and ceremonies in his religion that incorporate some themes that are very similar to Freemasonry. I'm not going to say that he stole it or did what. I'm not going to say that. I'm not here to peg whatever, but there are some very.
He was obviously inspired by.
Yes. He was inspired by
what he saw, and that filtered through to his belief system. Yeah. Right. So
and they called it celestial masonry, where instead of passwords and grips to get you entrance into a Masonic lodge, there's password signs and grips to get you into heaven. There's a celestial connotation to it. So it was very interesting. I plan on and respectfully, talking about that later on. Not now. I got too much going on right now, but definitely in the back burner.
That's something for the future. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Which is good, because that's the way it works. Your interest lies in certain areas, and it gets sparked by little things, and obviously this is the Joseph Smith thing is something that sparked your interest. And you can work on that, and link things together with it and write about it at a later date. You know,
It's a story that I feel needs to be told because,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
so much
There's a link
misinformation.
there with the Morgan affair, isn't there? There's like a
They knew each other. They were acquaintances. And from what I read, it's very complex because records are scarce
yeah,
and historians are divided on this topic. They can never come to a consensus on
yeah,
what happened, the dates or what have you. But from what I've read, Joseph Smith knew him and tried to get him into the church and become a member, but he was apprehensive. He was like,
yeah,
"Oh, I need to think about it. I don't know. I'm not sure."
yeah.
And when he passed away, Joseph would end up taking his wife as one of his many plural wives.
Right,
So
right.
there is a connection with William Morgan. They were
Yeah,
in
yeah,
New York
yeah,
together in the same area.
yeah.
So there's a lot to talk about.
And then after that, there's the anti-Masonic party.
Right,
There's the Colombian Illuminati, you know, as
right,
well,
right,
which
right,
is very interesting area to discuss. I mentioned a bit about that in um, my last book, The Rediscovered Rituals, which is effectively a Masonic biography of Richard Carlisle, the English radical, who wrote the Manual of Freemasonry and all the high degrees that he put in there. But he also wrote a section, like an introductory section, and it's a fascinating section because it's all about why he did it, you know, and why he put it together. And he was very, very into education because at the time a lot of working class people in England and Wales, Scotland were illiterate. So he wanted to educate them, and that was all part of the theme that he carried over into the Manual of Freemasonry, to educate Freemasons. You know, in a very strange way. But he actually wrote about the Morgan affair, and he was inspired by Elihu Palmer, who was obviously accused later on of being in the center of the Colombian Illuminati. You know, so there's all these connections. It's great. You know, you can bounce from one to the other to the other.
Now, on that topic with Carlisle, if I can recall from reading your book, didn't Carlisle kind of sneak some of these secrets in the book? Like if you look at the book in the light, like the page, you see certain words. Also,
Oh
there's like
yeah, yeah.
secret pages that are
Yeah,
tucked
that's right.
in.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's what I
You
can
have to
recall
slit
from
the
the book.
pages because as you kind of complete the degrees, you know, they're still secret, so they're stuck together. So you got to slit the pages, and you can still get these copies of Manual of Freemasonry where the pages are still sealed together. Well, yeah. There's watermarks in there and all
Right,
kinds of
right.
things, and yeah, it's great. You know, it's the Reeves edition. Which is the one that's photographed in the book. I think it's from 1912, so it's not too old. You know, it's just over 100 years old. But it's a beautiful edition, and you can get older editions of the Manual of Freemasonry, and you know, they are nice books to get because, you know.
Yeah, when I read that in your book, I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Now, as a historian, a researcher, how do you find these Easter eggs, the watermarks, the secret pages? Like, do you have people that tell you, hey, look out for this, or do you find it on your own?
No, I mean, I discovered that myself with the Reeves edition. I mean, when I actually bought a copy of it from a guy, maybe about 20 years ago. And it was a great old book, really battered old thing. But I noticed that these pages were, you know, were still like sealed together, you know, towards the end of the book. So whoever bought it, you know, hadn't got that far. And but I'd since given talks to numerous lodges where they showed me the libraries, and I remember giving a talk to a lodge in Yorkshire. Which I think was called the Shakespeare Lodge, and it was a few years ago now. And the guy that invited me up there took me into the library, and they had a load of editions of Manual of Freemasonry, and he was taking them out and saying, "Oh, look at that! You know, the pages are still sealed, you know. And you know, when like an entered apprentice, you know, you went in as an entered apprentice, and then, you know, you did the second degree and third degree, and then you was given a, you know, ritual book at the end, you know,
Right.
and obviously, you know, it was all still sealed until you reached a certain stage. And yeah, it was great, you know. And then I discovered the watermarks in there. The watermarks are, you know, to do with you know with the publisher, basically, you know, how they chose the paper and watermark.
So the publisher is working or conspiring with the author to create the
Yeah,
materials.
well, the author was, I mean, Richard Carlisle passed away in the 1840s, but Reeves had obviously, you know, used this quality paper, basically. And so you get this watermark down there, and it just adds to that aesthetic, really,
Awesome.
of the book,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, really, you know. You know, just gives that nice little touch to the book, really. And you know, but it's a great book, you know. I've always wanted to do something on the Manual of Freemasonry, and about Richard Carlisle, but Lewis Masonic would never really touch him, because he's a radical, you know. He was an English radical. He was, I suppose he was probably an early socialist, really, even though that political frame didn't really exist then, in a way. He was a working class guy that was, he had his own journal. He was selling that to working class people. He was critical of the government, of the regime at the time.
Is there a parallel between him and like maybe like a Karl Marx or something like that? Like a
well, he was in a kind of like an English, not a philosopher like Karl Marx, but he was a champion of working class ethics, shall we say, and very radical. He was, for the time. This is when in England, working class people, if you didn't own any land, you didn't have the vote, you know. So the working class majority, you know, weren't voting. Unlike America, of course, who had won a revolution by that time, and you know, you guys were equal, you know.
well, thanks to the French.
Yeah.
The French helped out, and then never.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So in England,
gave them Canada for.
Yeah, that's right. We were still kind of, you know, factory workers. You know, the working classes were, you know, no political power at all. So Richard Carlisle was at the forefront of that. His main inspiration was Thomas Paine. Going back to the American Revolution, War of Independence, you know, and Thomas Paine was still a very risque figure in England at that time, early 19th century. This is so he ended up in jail. Carlisle ended up in jail because he criticised, well, many people really. He criticised the Peterloo massacre, which happened in 1819 in Manchester, where he was due to give a speech, and the local yeomanry came in and tried to disperse the crowd and killed many people, injured up to about 400 people or so. Just went in there with swords and, you know, cut down the crowds and trampled people. And so he wrote about that in the Republican. The journal was called The Republican, his own journal, and he criticised the Prince of Wales, which you know was a big no in those days. You know, to criticise a royal. Still is in England, you know, really, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's only recently, you know, we've got all the stuff about Prince Andrew and all that stuff that's coming out, you know. But to criticise a royal back then was you know a big thing, really. And he'd also got in trouble with he was accused of blasphemy. So for a while, Carlisle was he threw away religion. You know, he was kind of very critical of the Church of England. So yeah, you know, he'd made enemies, and he ended up in jail. And he was given a massive fine that he couldn't pay off.
Wow.
And it was while he was in jail that he wrote the Manual of Freemasonry. And he had a lot of followers and a lot of supporters, and they were smuggling in Masonic rituals for him, you know, to copy.
A little bit of
yeah.
light in a dark place. I think
Oh yeah, that's right. He was never a Freemason. In fact, he actually criticised Freemasonry at first. Later on, in later editions of the manual, when he was still alive, it softened his opinion of Freemasonry. I think he started to like it, you know, after obviously digesting all these rituals and working out the Masonic story, and he softened his opinion at the end. He was an atheist, but even that, you know,
you could join a French lodge.
Yeah, his religion also kind of changed slightly. You know, he was up and down. You know, changed his views. But yeah, you know, he was a total radical, and I think because of that reason, a lot of Masonic writers didn't like him and dismissed his work. But his work was valuable, really. The Manual of Freemasonry was in most lodges, you know, because the emulation ritual wasn't allowed to be in print up until 1969, I think it was. So he was, you know, he was the savior, really, of people that needed to read and revise their ritual. And there still are some lodges that use that ritual today in England. So
now, going back to Thomas Paine, there's a lot of interesting figures during the American Revolution. Well, let me get a little drink here. I'm a little parched.
Yeah. Cheers.
So going back to the Revolution, there was a lot of idealists who were Freemasons who saw this as an opportunity to be a part of something new.
Yeah.
We find out, you know, like Casimir Pulaski came and he fought, and he was a Freemason. I didn't know that. But he heard about it, and he came and fought. And also the Illuminati got wind. Adam Weishaupt got wind of the colonies and their ideal of a Masonic nation, so to speak, an ideal and philosophy, so to speak. And they wanted to kind of, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted like a little territory. It didn't come to fruition. They didn't have the money to do it, but they wrote letters, correspondence that you could find that they wanted to somehow attach themselves to this new this new idea of a Masonic nation or whatever. And it's very, very interesting, that whole ordeal. But so to my knowledge, you have a new book coming out. Is that true? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. The Rite of 7 Degrees. Yeah. Well, it's part of a series. It's part of a loose series, if you like, of 3 books. The first one was Lost Rites and Rituals of Freemasonry, which came out 2017. Second one was the Rediscovered Rituals, which was the Carlisle book. And the third one is the Rite of 7 Degrees. And they are linked together. The Lost Rites book was basically the result of a conversation I had with a few brothers at the time, or about a year before anyway. I was talking to a guy called Joseph Wages. You've probably heard of him. You've probably read some of his work. And he was telling me all about these, you know, his work that he was doing, and he'd just done the Illuminati book. It's been very popular, and we just had this crazy conversation really about the Rite of Strict Observance and Rite of Zinzendorf and Cagliostro's rite and the Eclectic rite, all these weird and wonderful rites that were on the continent in the late 18th century. Now, I'd been concentrating for years on English Freemasonry. All my work up until then had been about English Freemasonry. So I was aware of this stuff, but I'd never really got into it. And, you know, I'd kind of read Gould, and he touched on it, and a few other sources, and I'd read Joseph Wages' book, and then I met a guy called P.D. Newman. You probably heard of him. He had just done, or was just about to do, or was still researching at any rate, the Alchemically Stone book about Cagliostro's rite, and how, well, part of it anyway was about that rite and how they took the drink, and I think it was the second degree, and it was his theory was that it could have been DMT and the drink from the acacia.
Yeah, so like a red liqueur.
Yeah, that's it. A genus of the acacia plant was in there for the DMT, and it, you know, kind of trip people out when they're in the lodge. And I thought,
but it was a lot of placebo though, because because your stomach can't. It doesn't break down that chemical. It's like your acids in your stomach kind of just like eat it up. So you don't get the full effect by ingesting it that way orally. It has to be like the smoke or incense or something like that. I think Melusino was doing the incense, if I'm not mistaken.
Melusino was doing the incense thing, and the hot coals thing. And I thought, you know, that's fantastic. I've never, again, no one's ever talked about that. No one's ever discussed that, you know, because I think Masonic history and the academic approach to Freemasonry was always quite stuffy. It was always, you know, they never revealed a lot about the ritual. It was always more about the philosophy of it and history of lodges and the biopics and you know, but still there's some good old stuff. I mean I'm a big fan of Gould, you know, Robert Freak Gould, you know, fantastic stuff, and Mackey, and but we digress a bit. But yeah, at that particular time, there was all this new stuff coming out about rituals, and I started to look for a book on all of these lost rites, and I couldn't find one. And I was picking up bits from other books and things like that, but I thought there really needs to be a book on these. And I had a chat to my publisher about it, and we said, oh yeah, we'll call it Lost Rites. Yeah, that'd be great. So basically, I thought, yeah, let's do it, and because that's what's needed. And at the time, I was talking to Art de Hoyos, and having a chat to him about that, and about other things, how it all links together, and how these lost rites inspired the occult revival in the later 19th century, and how some of these lost rites were readapted, you know, for
Golden
that
Dawn, Ordo Templi Orientis.
Yeah, that's it.
Builders of the Ditum.
Exactly, brings us into Crowley, Yarka, Arthur Edward Waite, you know, all of these people, you know, that were around in the later 19th century, early 20th century. And yeah, so, you know, I thought, well, that's going to be good. There's a theme there, and, you know, I quite like it. And then I thought I'll do two parts to this, because obviously I want to bring it back to England in the second part, because I mentioned about how in English lodges, most of the lodges do their own ritual, their own style of ritual. A lot of those are getting lost because the lodges are closing, you know, they're handing the warranty. So I thought, well, I'll do a bit on that as well. And hence I mentioned the Carlisle thing. So that allowed me to get into the Carlisle book, really. That was like a springboard into the Carlisle book, The Rediscovered Rituals. So I did that, and so that's how that came about. So I had two books there, and then this Rite of 7 Degrees. Well, Richard Carlisle, some of his high degrees were actually being performed by a guy called Pierre Lambert de Lintot in the Rite of 7 Degrees, which was based in London in the later 18th century. And so that's how this third book has come about. And that was mentioned in the Lost Rites as well, because the Rite of 7 Degrees is one of these 7-degree rites that no longer exists. You know, it's you know, ceased in the 1790s. And it's fascinating, right? Very esoteric. It's a beautiful rite, a pathway, a real kind of beautiful late 18th century esoteric pathway of a Masonic rite. And for the first time, we've published the ritual. I've had it translated from the 18th century French to modern English.
Which is hard to do. If for anyone listening, you know, Brother David talks about it very nonchalantly, but the French language is very hard to translate because there's so many nuances to the language, depending on what part of the country you're in, depending on what you're talking about. There's like double entendres and things could mean different. So it's very hard. It's very hard to translate these old French works, especially, you know, particularly on occultism or Freemasonry. It's very difficult. So did you have a hard time translating that? Or?
Yeah, well, I got a lot of help by a guy called Thierry Bachman, and he's a French Freemason that I know, and so he did the hard part, really, and then I kind of checked over it, and I got another guy involved called Julian Rees, who you might have heard of. He's another English author, Masonic author, and Pierre Mollier was another academic French Freemason, who's wrote many works on the history of French Freemasonry in the 18th century. So I had all these people look at it and tweak it, and I was kind of working with these guys, and so that became the basis, really, of the book. And I was writing a biography on Pierre Lambert de Lintot, and he was an engraver as well. So there's a piece in there about his engravings. His engravings are beautiful, beautiful artwork, and they're all Masonic. So and they
Paul Revere was engraver, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's right. He did certificates, didn't he? And yeah, that's right. Well, I've got one of his certificates, a picture of it anyway, in the Lost Rites book, because I talk about the lost feminine imagery in Freemasonry, which I think you still retain it in some of the states over there, don't you? You know, when you get your certificate, your Masonic certificate,
in different jurisdictions, and even in here,
we've lost that
in the United States, we call it Mother Lodge. Whatever lodge you got your 3 degrees,
that's right.
Was raised in, we call it Mother Lodge.
That's right.
So or you could call it Blue Lodge, but mostly I hear Mother Lodge. That's
Mother Lodge. Yeah, what's your Mother Lodge? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, here we've lost it on our certificate. It's just the 3 pillars, and but with Paul Revere, and indeed in the certificates in the 18th century over here, in the early 19th century, pre-Union mainly, you get faith, hope, and charity personified as women, you know. And
well, I mean, ancient deity Fides for fidelity. You hear about that. I'll cover that in a subsequent episode. But the ancient deity, it was a female, and also too, you hear, you know, you hear about symbols that are associated with Freemasonry. There's tons of them, right? But one that comes to mind is the cornucopia. It's a very masculine and feminine symbol, which we still use in our regalia for the officer. I forgot which one it is, but we still use that on our aprons, and on the jewel we have the cornucopia.
That's right. Yeah. So, you know, so that kind of links together with the series, really. It's a loose trilogy, really, and the thing with you being a writer and author, you know, you're constantly looking to do that with books, you know, to weave the themes together. I mean, the thing with books, even though it's Masonic books, you still need to sell them. So it's a fine line between writing something that's light academic but also it's going to sell. You need to sell the book, otherwise you're not going to be asked to write another one. So
Well, Robert Lomas did a fantastic job in that regard.
Oh yeah. Robert's probably the best-selling
yeah, he's up there,
Masonic author.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
he broke through with the Hiram Key, which isn't academic as such, but I mean, knowing Robert and knowing where he comes from with his writing and with his thinking, when you talk to him, you can actually, and if you've read the Hiram Key, you can hear his voice when you're reading the book. And so yeah, every Masonic author is different, but yeah, he broke through with the Hiram Key, and that's still a massive seller.
In your opinion, what do you think it takes for a Masonic author to sort of break through? I mean, like in your case, it's very rare that, your dissertation ends up becoming a bestseller. I mean, that's kind of rare. You don't really hear that too often. It might be popular. It might be very well downloaded on academia website or what have you, but to be a bestseller, to sell out and to keep pre-printing, how does a Masonic author break through the barrier of being a writer as well as being a historian and having the audience accept it and love it?
Well, it's quite strange with Freemasonry, because it can be a double-edged sword sometimes, because you can, you do sell a lot. Say you sell a lot of books, like the Genesis of Freemasonry sold, a hell of a lot of books. It kind of shocked me how much it sold, but there was still its critics were quite strong. So there's some bad reviews out there of that book, and on the equal side, there's
you can't please everybody.
There's some good books, some good reviews of the book. Equally, there's good reviews. So it's strange, and most of the reviews were Masonic anyway. They came from Freemasons, from various quarters or wherever, from being reviews in magazines or in journals. But when you publish a book, when you get a book published, you're not going to please everybody with the book. It's like when it was a PhD, at the PhD stage, I mean, my tutor, he said to me, this is a book. I can see this as a book. Even before I knew it was a book. But he warned me. He said, with it being Freemasonry, you're going to get criticised. And he was right. And so, but yeah, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. I mean, I was talking to Robert the other day, and Robert said that he's that Hiram Key book. I mean, it's sold so well. It's probably the bestseller, but it's been criticised for it. But so you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and that's that. But as long as you feel good with your work, and you're doing the best you can, and you're doing it the right way to you, we all have our own style of writing, of research, of putting books together. I mean, I'm a fan of like abstract art, and I paint as well, so I always think in like a slightly kind of abstract way. So when I'm putting a book together, I like to put secrets in there and odd little things, with it being about Freemasonry. I like to have a bit of a Masonic touch in there, that's some people might pick up on. Like, for example, with Genesis of Freemasonry, I had 9 chapters, and I thought, the number 9's good there, because it's a number that resonates in Freemasonry as well. And also, I'm a Beatles fan, So, and so
Number
we
nine.
yeah,
Number.
that's it. That's it. So I thought, I'm having nine chapters in it, and so I was thinking like that, a bit abstract, and try and put something in there. And there's also bits about my family in there as well. There's I thought I'd put that in, and odd little bits.
Didn't you have like a genealogist put together a book of your family background? Did you do that?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How was that process like? Is that pretty interesting? Did you
That,
yield some interesting information?
yeah, it was good. Yeah. It was a lady from Facebook that someone passed on to me, contact details, and Diane Muir, her name was, and yes, she did a fantastic job. I'd already done part of my family history years ago, for a little project when I was doing my MA, because it was in local history, and I went down to the local library and put together my tree. I went back as far as I could. My dad's side, I think, I went back to about 1590, the Harrison side, and my mum's side, not so far, probably about 1790 or something. And they were mainly, it was a working class family, really, and they stayed in the same location, for hundreds of years. But I'd had a slight connection to local aristocracy, with the Domville family. And ironically enough, my first lodge was called Domville Lodge. And what it was, my great grandmother was illegitimate, and but when I got the birth certificate, her mother had named her father anyways, Thomas Domville, and I thought, oh, that's a connection. And I always wanted to investigate that, but never did. But I ended up mentioning that to Diane, and so she kind of went for gold with that, and she actually linked me onto the Domville family, and that led somewhere else,
Right.
So so there's a little bit of aristocracy going on there, and but it was great. It was great to find out that. And she did a lot more research on my dad's side and my mum's side, and put it all together. So it was good.
I call those monkey wrenches, because when I'm doing research, I'm starting to get into genealogy. I'm still a newbie. We have a few genealogical. I don't even know the word. It's been such a long day.
Genealogy,
Yeah, it's a
been one of
long.
them days. Yeah.
Genie in a bottle.
Yeah.
There's a few societies here at the library that they meet every so often, but they only have records for like our county or our state. They're very limited in capacity of what records they do have. I know, the LDS Church, the Mormons are very big on genealogy. I've been trying to track down my family as well, but it's hard because back in the day, people would get adopted, and your uncle would take care of you. You'd take this name, and back in the day, people also married cousins and things like that.
That's
So
right.
so
Yeah.
things could get very difficult, and I call these monkey wrenches, but they keep you going. It's almost like you want to keep going, and you want to keep peeling back the layers.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's addictive. Yeah, and you're just kind of going on and on and on, and you want to crack the secret, and yeah. I mean, I knew a bit about my family, so that one of them, a great uncle, I think he was a Freemason, in the lodge that I'm in now, the Lodge of Light.
Wow.
So and his grave's in Warrington. So that went in the book, The Genesis of Freemasonry, a picture of his grave. So yeah, I just dropped in little things like that, which I thought was a nice little secret touch.
And I think there's a connection between genealogy and Freemasonry. I mean, you look at old lodge minute books, and you can find, the records of
all those names, all those records.
And when you become a Freemason, it's like you're almost in a contact or in a connection with that deep history. and it's
Yeah.
almost like you
Yeah.
feel the history. And there's definitely a connection between, people who research genealogy stuff and people who research Masonic records. Sometimes they overlap. You find members in your family who are Freemasons, like you had mentioned.
Mm,
I think these two things kind of go hand in hand. And if any
oh yeah.
researcher out
Yeah.
there who's interested in Masonic research, definitely check out, genealogy and research if you had any
Mm,
Freemasons in your family or what have you.
yeah.
I have a lot of family when I was doing my research back in Germany and things like that. And grandma had family in England, and there could be some Freemasons in my family. So it
Mm,
definitely
mm,
wants to make me. It motivates me to go harder and just research more. Freemasonry definitely gives you an outlet to explore the past. It's like a vehicle, and we could definitely get really intimate with the craft the more we research, and it's definitely very interesting. I'm definitely going to have to look more into it, but as a historian, there's so many layers and interworking
mm.
components to keep this going, and it could be very difficult, very challenging. It could take a lifetime, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head with layers. Yeah. Freemasonry is multi-layered.
Right.
um it's like an onion. You just keep on peeling away and peeling away. It's
Well,
fascinating. Well, yeah, the genealogy thing. Yeah, I mean, the United Grand Lodge of England, they get so many calls from people that are researching the family history. The library there.
same with in Scotland, brother Robert Cooper. He told me that they get inquiries all
Yeah.
the time about
Oh
family.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like for
Yeah.
instance, I don't know if it's Job's daughters or some Masonic order. Like you have to have a family member who's a Freemason, like
Yeah.
grandfather or great grandfather, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent, but yeah, they do get inquiries all the time. Do I have
Mm,
any
mm,
relatives that were Freemason?
yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah.
It could take a lifetime. I remember Art Hoyos telling me that when he worked on Morals and Dogma, the annotated edition,
Mm,
that he spent like my whole lifetime. Where I'm only 31. He spent
mm,
nearly my whole lifetime working on this book, and
yeah.
it
Yeah.
just makes me appreciate it more. And all
Oh yeah.
historians,
Yeah.
all historians have this eureka moment, right?
Mm,
Um, you know, and that was his when he was looking at Morals and Dogma. He found a passage, and then he read another book. It was like Greek philosophy or something like that, and he found
mm,
the same passage, like
yeah.
word for word.
That's right.
The light bulb went off. Like, wait a minute, did
Yeah.
Albert Pike
Yeah.
plagiarize this stuff?
That's
And
right. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
put it together. And then with you're researching, Carlisle, and you find the
Mm,
watermarks. That's the eureka moment. And also, I had brother Christopher Earnshaw. He found out that the eureka, it wasn't who said that.
mm,
I don't want to give it away. I want people to watch the episode. But
yeah.
eureka was not said by whom our Freemason ritual tells us that it said it. So that was his moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
Well,
all
that's
need
it.
that
Yeah.
moment.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, it's great because you do all this research and suddenly something just drops, and yeah, without the Hoyas, I mean, he spent all that time on that, doing the annotations and doing the research and all those footnotes and things. I mean, he's probably the leading. If anyone was to ask me who is the leading Masonic scholar, I'd say Art the Hoyas, really, because he's so kind of meticulous with everything, and all of his work has just been for, as we mentioned before about the themes running through your work. It's the same with Art the Hoyas. All those themes, the Scottish Rite and Pike, and it all kind of
Yeah.
feeds through his work completely. So you can start anywhere. You can pick out whatever book you want, and it could be his last book, it could be his first book, it could be the middle book, but you'll still pick up on that theme. and you can branch out, and which is good. It's the mark of a good writer, and that's what it's all about. It's kind of weaving that theme throughout the work, which is good.
Yeah, I don't like when Masonic authors are a little too dry. It's just information. I like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they I
yeah,
like when they
yeah,
put in a
yeah.
little bit of their personality, a little bit of their input.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. You need that. Yeah, it's a way of connecting with your audience, if you like. You're kind of giving it that human element.
right.
I mean, I
It
mentioned
pulls
about the
you in
family
and
history.
it draws you
Yeah,
in and it keeps
yeah,
you there.
yeah. That's it. That's it. Putting a bit of yourself in there, putting your own style, developing your style as well. I mean, when I look back at Genesis of Freemasonry, which was my first work, I can see that my style's developed, and you can see that throughout each book, but also you're drawing from your past work anyway. So whatever book you do, you kind of refer back to Genesis of Freemasonry or Transformation of Freemasonry or whatever. Liverpool Masonic Rebellion, the York Grand Lodge. You're kind of referring back all the time. To those works, and again, you're kind of weaving them together in a way. Which is good.
Now, since we're on the topic of like writing and putting it together and the process, now having an editor, everyone tells me, hey, if you want a good editor, make sure it's someone that hates your writing, so they could take it apart and just
Yeah.
destroy
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And then, so what about you? Do you have an editor that's you have a cool relationship with, or is it someone that hates your writing? How do you come to a consensus and find a medium, the happy balance?
Yeah, well, you need a good editor. You need someone that's trained in editing, really, that's knows what to do with a book, knows what to do with the writing. The editor that I had for this last book, the Writer of 7 Degrees book that's coming out in a few months, the Pierre Lambert de Linto one. I think she was a history lecturer or something like that. She's a PhD anyway, and she'd retired, but she was great, and probably the best editor I've worked with for a long time. And she really kind of picked it apart and said, "What's this? I'm not. What are you trying to say there? And that's what you need from a good editor, and to basically shape the book up, give it a good shake. And also, it's a new pair of eyes on what you've written, because you're writing for other people, basically.
Right.
You're writing for thousands and thousands of other people. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't. We mentioned that before. You can never please everyone with a book. There's always going to be somebody that'll pick something out in your book and say, "Oh, that's terrible." Always. So you've got to be prepared for that, but you've also got to be prepared for other people reading it, other people's attitudes, and a good editor can prepare you for that, really. They can read through it and say, "Well, I'm not sure about what you just said there, that paragraph, it's a bit muddled. You need to either get rid of it or reword it or do whatever you want with it, but it needs to be changed." So, it's good to work with a good editor,
I submitted some pieces here in Illinois. We have like our magazine, Grand Lodge, distributes to the members.
Oh, yeah.
I submitted a piece. The editor ripped it apart,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad he did, because he ripped it apart. But you know how Brother Masons, we're supposed to help each other, build each other up.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to learn about this, and that, brush up on this. And so I did a little research, went back to the drawing board, and I feel like I am a better writer because of that. Have you
Yeah.
felt a
Oh,
similar
yeah.
instance where your writing developed working with good editors?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. It's good because it kind of shakes everything up, and that's what you need. And yeah, some people can clash with their editors and you know, don't agree with them, or you know, but you know, that's part of the process. That's part of the publishing process. But yeah, you need a good editor, and another pair of eyes, a new pair of eyes over your work.
I can
Really,
imagine this being difficult though, if you're writing like a book on like esotericism or occultism, and your editor or publishers don't understand the context of what you're
yeah.
trying to say.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I could see
yeah,
there being, you know, problems there.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you might have
yeah.
to reiterate some information for them, or what have you.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. Yeah,
so
yeah,
so you definitely have to get in where you fit in, you know, find a publisher that, like, you know, resonates with your work, you know, they believe in your work. And some
yeah,
people go with publishers just because, you know, the payout is better, or because, you know, they could get their book out quicker, or what have you. Like, I read this guy named Robert Greene. I don't know if you heard of him.
Robert.
Robert Greene, he wrote the 48 Laws of Power, and
Oh yeah,
Art of
yeah, yeah,
Seduction, and
yeah,
all.
yeah,
He's kind of like a self-help sort of
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Um,
Self-help guru type
yeah,
writer. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he has a book called Mastery, and in this book, he had mentioned, um, I can't remember if it was in the book or an interview about the book. I can't recall, but he did mention that this new publisher, they had a strict deadline, and he was trying to cram in all this information in this book, and he
Mm.
kind of regrets that he didn't have, you know, the proper time to put into it. You know, there was all
Yeah, yeah,
deadlines and
yeah, yeah,
expectations and things like that.
yeah, yeah. You
um
get time limits, and yeah. I mean that can be the other thing. You know, you can get like time issues. Like once I was commissioned to do a book called Quick Guide to Freemasonry, which is only a thin book, about 30,000 words, a nice little slim thing that you put in your pocket. And it was designed for that, you know, a quick guide, you know, and it was for new Freemasons, or people that were interested in Freemasonry, or mentors, lodge mentors. Um, I only had a short time to do it, really, you know, I think probably a few months or
wow.
something like that. And the publisher, I think it was Lewis Masonic, originally they said, do you want to do it? I said, yeah, I'll do it. Because I thought, well, if I turn it down, someone else will do it, you know.
Yeah.
And it was, you get an advance and things like that. So, so it was all right. And, I did it, and I drew off my own work, and it was my style. And but yeah, it was done in a short period of time, really. I think you only had a few months to do it, you know. So yeah, you know, you do get projects like that where the time's short, but then, you know, you've just got to do it. It's like a job, really.
Yeah, I seen an interview where they had the editor of the Square magazine, where he was talking about, like, over the years, the different articles and magazines they put
Oh yeah,
out.
yeah. Richard
uh
Gann, was it, or was it?
I can't remember his name. He's an older gentleman, gray
Yeah.
hair, older gentleman.
Oh, it was. Yeah, the guy after. I
The
know
very
him.
first, editor they had when they originally came out with that magazine.
Right, could have
Um,
been Richard Gann then.
he said that it wasn't easy putting that together. There's a lot of controversy with some of the articles,
Yeah,
fan mail, sometimes hate mail.
yeah,
So it's interesting to see publication like the Square, you know, touch on some of these topics. For instance, I have a
yeah, yeah,
magazine
yeah,
about
yeah,
Egyptology from them, Freemasonry and Egyptology, and I
yeah,
really
yeah.
like their publications. I like Lewis Masonic. I like what they do. Martin is an interesting character, to say the least. I like
Yeah,
his
yeah,
meditation videos, and he's kind of quirky. He's kind of out there. I like it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know. I feel like Lewis Masonic is doing a great thing, and I see them branching out. They put out the English Illuminati, and they're Joseph Wages' stuff. I mean, they're
Mm.
touching on things that most publishers wouldn't even, you know, think about. They put out the
Yeah,
Hoyos book
that's it.
too,
Yeah.
where it
Mm.
was it the Rectified Right, or or something like that. I think it was Rectified Scottish Rite or something like that. I think it's called Committed to the Flames or something.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
Remember that.
pretty good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, you've got to remember that with Masonic work, no other publisher would really be interested. I mean, it's very rare, that you get a mainstream publisher interested in Masonic academia, can we say? I mean, we mentioned the Hierarchy by Robert Lomas, but that was more of a popular speculative work.
Right.
In the vein of that kind of
For public consumption. Lewis
yeah,
Masonic is
yeah,
definitely more
yeah. That's it.
geared
And
toward
I think
Freemasons.
yeah, that kind of came out, did massively well, and which was fine for that, but with stuff like my stuff and say Joseph Wages' stuff, and which is about a particular ritual or a particular rite, or maybe about the a history of something specific in Freemasonry. It's no popular publisher will work with that, because they don't understand it. They don't understand the Masonic aspect of it. They don't understand the market, really. The Masonic market is a bit of a niche market. It's a bit of a specialist market. So, it can be quite a big market, really. You can still sell several thousand books, several thousand copies,
But I noticed, Masonic authors like yourself and others in the peer group. There's a couple handfuls of Masonic authors in the community online, Facebook, that are putting out great work. But it seems like everyone who's putting out something, they're finding a certain angle that hasn't been touched on really, and they're highlighting it. I noticed. You're seeing more niche publications about maybe an obscure rite or
yeah, it's getting more into that, because I think there's an interest at the moment in the esoteric spiritual side,
translations on early French, like Edel Cohen and Martinism, things that were never published in forever, like that were never translated. It's all coming out right now, and it's hurting my pockets, to be honest with you. So
yeah, well, it's true. I mean, even like Carlyle's Manual of Freemasonry, that's never been done before. I mean,
revolutionary, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of papers in QC about that, about Carlyle, but he's given a real hard time, in most of them, I think.
And you got to hunt down what volume and what magazine, and what you have to hunt down every source to compile it, and it's not easy at all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's very, at the moment there's I mean, since I started writing, it's developed into this kind of more esoteric spiritual market. There's in relation to Freemasonry, it's a younger readership, if you like, a younger audience that want to find out about this, and that want to find out about the more accessible spiritual element to Freemasonry, where these rituals came from, and how they developed and how they evolved. And there's this real interest now, in these, and to actually look at a ritual or a rite and have it translated or transcribed or whatever, so it's accessible, and you've got a commentary on it. And it all kind of links together. It's good. It's a good market at the moment.
My problem is that there's a stigma about some of these words. There's a stigma attached to some of them. Like esoteric, occult. These words should not be bad words. I think they've been misunderstood and misinterpreted for so long.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, occult is basically
hidden knowledge. Right.
Yeah, that's it. And when you look at the occult revival, you've got Frederick Hockley and Yarker and Arthur Edward Waite and Crowley and all these people, and you know, it's all about these guys kind of searching for hidden knowledge.
Yeah. Whether
And
other Masons want to admit it or not, it's all a part of a similar sphere. I mean, we
that's
have
right.
degrees,
That's right.
we have degrees that hint at Rosicrucianism, that hint at Martinism,
Yeah.
but when you research the history of where it comes from, you know, they kind of hide and conceal where it comes from. You know, oh, we don't have the records, it's too old, we don't know where it comes from. But you know, it's like energy kind of shifts and moves and forms, you know, these. And right now we're in a period in time where it's like the energy of the information egregore is just pouring out. And I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel it. It's like there's so many books
I can
coming
feel
out.
that, definitely. Yeah. Well, I first kind of got into that by talking to like Joe Wages that time, you know, that kind of gave me that idea for the Lost Rites, and Art de Hoyos and P.D. Newman, you know, with his alchemically stoned, and because that was just another way of looking at it, you know, that was just
Angels in Vermilion was amazing.
I've not read that one yet. I'll have to
definitely grab that.
Yeah,
amazing.
I'll have to get a signed copy of that one. Yeah,
amazing.
But yeah, I mean, that's it, and it's all going on now, you know, and it's all people are tapping into that, and
the knife and fork Masons are starting to look at the younger bloods coming in like, they're interested in this and that, and there's a new shift in our fraternity where the social club Masons are starting to realize that there is a hunger, there's a thirst for knowledge, that these younger gentlemen
there's a thirst for this kind of lost knowledge,
right?
And it's not like an occult revival as such,
right?
But it's kind of what you've got are thousands and thousands and thousands of Masons from all over the world that are suddenly tuning into this stuff,
right?
And they want something more from Freemasonry than charity events and you know, and kind of you know, that kind of old boys club thing. You know, you want more than that.
And also, there's nothing wrong with our history, our plain old history, without all the extra stuff. I mean, our plain history is just as fascinating as well as all this, you know, occult revival stuff and things like that. But even in Freemasonry, a lot of brethren don't even know the history part, just the plain old history part. So I like to have a well-rounded, you know, sphere of, you know, the history, also the mystical aspect as well. It's all intertwined, and you know, you could study occultism and be an esoterically inclined person without having to do rituals behind closed doors or join a secret group. You could just be curious. We're intellectually curious. We don't have to be, you know, doing this stuff or doing the work. You know, we could just read about it, we could talk about it. You know, there's this stigma that the people that are into this stuff are like weirdos and they're too new agey, and we need to stay away from them. But it shouldn't have to be like that. I feel like, you know, brother Masons who are into this stuff shouldn't be afraid or feel chastised for it. But we also want to be classy. We want to be respectful to our fraternity. We don't want to offend people. We don't want to bring about this negative connotation to the craft. So we have to be gentlemanly about it. We have to be, you know, respectful about this stuff. You don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but it is okay to talk about some of the mystical aspect. I heard from Freemasons that, you know, this is a mystic tie that we have. You know, it's a
mystic tie. Yeah, of course.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
The ties nowadays aren't as mystical as they used to be. So
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it's all about, you know, the journey to find God, basically, the journey to find perfection, the journey to find the divine, and it's however you get there, really. I mean, I think it was Crowley that said that you know, a magician is filled with God. You know, a magician is someone that is in contact with the divine or in contact with God, and this is what, going back to the Rite of 7 Degrees, you know, my next book. With Pierre Lambert de Linto, it was an esoteric pathway where at the very end, you know, you communing with the divine, and it was a pathway that led to that. So it was a beautiful set of degrees that had this climax at the end, and you were kind of made perfect. You discovered the word, and rediscovered the word, and you were made perfect, and you went out and you could build God's temple on earth, heaven on earth, So this is what it was all about: finding perfection, making a man as perfect as he can be, and so it's the same journey, really. It's just done in very different ways,
Right.
So
I know that before we started recording, we had a lengthy conversation that was really interesting.
oh yeah, we should have
But
recorded that one.
yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know there's a time difference. It's late over there, but I would love to have you back on to talk about the book when it comes out, The Rite of
Yeah,
Seven.
yeah.
That sounds amazing. But yeah, I'm definitely going to edit this and post pictures and things for context. I know we talk about things, but other Masons are probably hearing this like, what? Wait, what's that? What's that? So
Yeah.
to avoid the
Yeah.
confusion in the temple,
Yeah.
I want to post pictures and so when
Yeah,
this
yeah,
does gets
yeah.
edited, it's
Yeah.
gonna be with context, and it's gonna
Yeah, because
be
when
awesome.
we're talking like this, we're jumping from one thing to the other
Right.
and back again and then forward, and yeah, so it's hard, really, because it's like a conversation, which is good in a way,
Right.
and it kind of covers a lot. But yeah, that's great.
I feel like how we do things at Modern Working Tools is, we avoid the 2-hour questions and answers at the end and
Mm,
things like
mm,
that. We just get into it. It's back and forth dialogue. It's almost like you're getting everything all at once, as opposed to 3-hour long video. In 1 hour, we could
mm,
cover as much as a 3-hour video. That's kind of the goal. We want to
mm.
condense it.
Yeah, yeah,
We could play
yeah,
it during a stated meeting or something like that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. That'd be good. Yeah.
but yeah, if is there anything you would like to plug before we get on out of here?
Could plug all my books.
What about
Yeah.
your website?
Yeah. Oh, the website. Yeah. Well, you can check out the website. The website was, I mean, it's not been shut. I think we were talking about how I'm going to update that in the next few months, hopefully, but it's not been changed for about 5 or 6 years. But it's a blog. I do post blogs there at least once or twice a month. But it's www. drdavidharrison.com.
I'll
Little
write it in the
little takeaway signs in between there, yeah, go on there, visit that. There's some links to my academia profile, where you can access some free papers that I've had published over the years in various journals, and you can download those. And there's all kinds of things on there. There's Liverpool Masonic Rebellion paper, York Grand Lodge paper, papers on Byron and De Quincey and
talk about
Humphrey
Lord
Higgins.
Byron, the poet.
Lord Byron, the poet. Yeah, that's right. I did a paper on him many,
He's
many
awesome.
years ago.
He is
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He's not a Freemason, but he was in the Carbonari. And I think his great uncle was Grandmaster.
Ooh, interesting.
So
That's a group that I'm interested in. Also, the Hellfire Club. I like reading about
the
that.
Hellfire Club. Yeah, yeah. I mentioned that in the
There's people.
Genesis of
There's people that
Freemasonry
claim.
a
There's people
little
that
bit.
claim. You could join that and be a member. But
Dashwood. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but
It's a fantastic period. The late 18th century for for that kind of stuff. Delving into Masonic and the philosophy of it. It's fantastic.
well, Brother David, it was an honor to have you on. I really appreciate your time here with us.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah, it's
Uh,
been great. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, so we'll have to do it again sometime.
we definitely will, and I'll look forward to speaking with you when your new book comes out. And I wish you the best of luck and success with your upcoming titles
Thank you
coming
very
out.
much. Yeah.
I am Brother Justus signing off. Modern Working Tools here at Barrington 522 in Barrington, Illinois, Grand Lodge of Illinois, AF and AM. If you're watching this, make sure you attend Lodge. Come out. There's a new era in Freemasonry, post-COVID era. People want to get together. They want to have fellowship and camaraderie. they want to talk about, the deeper meanings of Freemasonry, there's online communities, there's a lot going on. Please come out to Lodge, be active, be a good Mason, and an informed Mason is a better Mason. That's what I believe in. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Brother Justus signing off. Until next time, peace.